Hey guys, this is Mrs. Carter here, and we're in Science 8, and we're about to start our chemistry unit. First I'm going to go over what CSOs we're doing. We're doing 8.211, which is the use of the periodic table to locate and classify elements as metallic, nonmetallic, or metalloid. Also, we're going to touch in on 8.2.12, which has to do with the construction and development of the periodic table. Alright, so we're going to start with a basic overview of the periodic table. So first things first, you need to know that periods go across. So a row that goes across is a period. Those are called periods. Then you'll also need to know that if they go up and down, that's what group of an element is in. So let's say I said, what is in group 2 and row 3? So you'd say group 1, 2, so it's in this group, and then you say, alright, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So there it is. 3 down, 2 over, so it's right here, and it's magnesium. So that's how groups and periods work. And also you're going to want to write some of this down because we're going to use this info tomorrow to start a foldable and some other activities. Next, we're going to go on to the 3 types of metals. There's metals, then there's nonmetals, and there's metalloids. And we're going to identify where all that goes. So first we're going to talk about our metals. Metals make up the biggest part of the periodic table. They're shiny, or the word for that is luster. They're malleable and ductile, which means that they can be bended. They're not going to just be brittle and break. Also, they're really good conductors. We've already learned what conductor is, but a good conductor allows electric current through. And so your metals will be from here all the way over here, so it's all of this space here to the blue ones, and then it's also the 2 rows down here, and we'll discuss what the name of all these are in a few minutes, but to start out, that's your metals. Next, we'll talk about the nonmetals. Okay, so your nonmetals are from this side here over to the light blue ones there, so it's all of this. Alright, and nonmetals are dull. They don't have the luster or the shininess as metals. They're brittle and solid, which means they're not going to bend, that you'll just break them. And then they're not good currents. You can't run an electric current of any sort through them. They're not good conductors. So that's your nonmetals. Next we'll talk about metalloids. Metalloids is the strip of light blue here, these elements right there. And metalloids are sometimes called semi-metals because they kind of have some properties of the metals. They are sometimes shiny, and they can be a conductor, but they're not an awesome conductor. So most of the time, we call them metalloids or semi-metals, but for our class we're going to call them metalloids. Alright, so now let's talk about the special named groups, the important ones that I really need you to learn. Make sure you write this down. First, we're going to talk about the alkali metals. So right here are your alkali metals. Oh, and before I forget, I forgot to tell you. Hydrogen, although it's over here with all the other metals, it is not a metal. It's a nonmetal. And so, it's just over there, and we'll discuss why later. Okay, so here's your alkali metals right there. They're usually not very dense, so, they're the kind of elements that float, and they have lower melting points, so it doesn't take as much to melt them. Then you have your alkaline earth metals, which are these right here, the orange ones. Which are more dense, they're harder, they have higher higher melting points, and we'll get more into this tomorrow in class, but these are to get the basics going, to get you thinking about them. Alright, Next, we're going to discuss the lanthanide series. Okay, so it varies a little bit, but it's 57 through 71, which are these right here. And in reality, if we, this makes it all fit better and makes the valence electrons and other things that we'll discuss later work better. But they are placed right here. So the whole row would be spread out there. So that's the lanthanide series. So when you're looking at your atomic number, they go in row 57 to, let's do this, 57 to 71 here. And they would be right there, because if you see you've got 56 and it jumps to 72, it's because they're right in there. Alright. Then we're going to talk about the actinide series, and they are 89 through 103, right here. And they would be placed right in there. Oh, my dot moved. Alright, right in there. That's the actinide series. Okay. Next, we're going to discuss halogens, which halogen actually means salt former. So right here is halogen group. And I'm sure you've heard of table salt. You know, we've all salted something before. And that is putting two together, and that makes NaCl. So that's considered a salt. So there's salt formers, because you have your Na over here, and then they form with one over there to make salt. So salt formers, halogens, it's all this group right here. Okay. Then last but not least, we have the noble gases. These are not, they don't bind with things, they don't want to change. We'll do lots of really cool things with these, but your noble gases, they do not want to change. So they're pretty noble. They may do some really cool things like neon, you know, that's your bright lights, like if you think of like Las Vegas or on Broadway. So we're going to do some really cool things with this. But that's the overview. And then finally we're going to discuss what's actually in one of these little boxes. So, too much. Okay. So, what you would have would be your symbol here, right there. So, we'll call this symbol, we'll say that it's hydrogen. So, that would be like your H there, right? So, your H would go here. So, hydrogen, and then you have the name, and it would say hydrogen. And then you have the atomic number up here. Well, atomic number is the amount of electrons that it has. So, we're just going to start with, and hydrogen has a 1. Not electrons. I don't know why I said electron. It's the number of protons that it has, which is 1. So there's your number of protons, and so it would be up in the corner for hydrogen has 1, helium has 2, lithium has 3, and so on and so forth. And we'll look more at that, but just so we'll know where everything's at. And then your atomic mass will be at the bottom, and it just so happens hydrogen's another really easy one. It's actually like 1.008, but for what we're going to use it with, we'll do 1.01. But we'll discuss more about that later. And so there's your very first look at the periodic table. See you tomorrow.